And so if government is scared, which a lot of times it is, uh, the innovators, whether they are still in school, doing research, or just coming up through school, and industry, it makes it really hard to invest. Um, and so the money oftentimes follows the path of least resistance. And so if you are a company or industry looking to invest in a particular technology, you can do it two ways. You can either invest because it's a selfish need that you have, or because you're actually trying to do something for the greater good.
Louis, welcome to the Data Bytes Podcast. How's your day been so far?
So far, so good. This is an excellent way to end it.
Nice. I'm happy to hear that. Either started off or ended. It's either way, it's always fun to have a conversation. So I've had the pleasure of knowing you for a couple of years, but currently you are the head of strategic initiatives and developer ecosystems at NVIDIA. Maybe 4 years ago, some people in the technology space would know NVIDIA, but I feel like everyone knows who NVIDIA is this year. So having that you've been for the company for a little over 3 years, what's your role been focused on? What does it mean to lead strategic initiatives and the developer ecosystems, which has to be huge?
Yeah. So we have, first, thanks for having me. And I'll say that our developer ecosystem now is comprised of over 400 million developers globally. So me coming in when I did 3 years ago, after serving as a chief innovation officer in SEC, was, as they offered it, was for me to continue my life's work, which was offering access and opportunity to learners in underrepresented communities and bringing them along the innovation journey that I've been in. And so strategic initiatives means that I get to go out and make up my job for some more years, like I did with the state and with the city. But two, I get to go partner with organizations, with universities, with communities of learning, and again with governments to try to bring the AI learning to the masses. And that's it's a new area for the company when you think about community broadly versus a narrow set of developers. And a big piece of it is widening the community's access to our technology. So it's not necessarily so homogenous.
So you mentioned something that I want to call out, which was your life's work. And I think I haven't heard anybody say that typically until like the end of their life, but you're still very much in your prime and how much of your life works. I think it's so important I want to talk about how you came to this concept of your life's work, because I think it's really helpful when you switch industries or titles. Like, how is there like a theme woven into what you do? And did that help you dictate to this new role? Because prior to this, you worked in public service for quite some time, right? So to go from public service to the private industry, there had to be some common thread in there. How did you come up with this idea? Hey, my life's work, and it may take different shapes and forms of company, but like at the end of the day, I'm still Louis Stewart doing what I've been meant to do here.
Right. Yeah, no, and I say that a lot, and it hits people differently when they hear it. And the reality is, when I started working, I've never been the linear guy. So it's not like I'm good at being an engineer. No, I'm good at no, never not that either. So I've been involved in so many different things, and when I first started, my career was really about providing for my nuclear family, right? Providing for making sure that my family was taken care of. As things evolved, family grew. Um, I started getting into different opportunities, whether that be working on a statewide gubernatorial campaign, or traveling the state, or talking to international delegations. And what morphed was, I'm in the room a lot of times as the only black man in the room. And I realized that it doesn't really do any good for anybody for me to be the only one in the room and keep the knowledge to myself. So can't really tell you exactly when, but during my state career, I started getting the little morsels from working at the Department of Motor Vehicles and understanding how the state works. Then moving to the census, the statewide census effort in 2009, 2010, and understanding how money moves through the system. To GoBiz and understanding how ecosystems are built and developed or should be built and developed. And realizing that I need to be the bridge between what's coming and what people know, right? And providing an opportunity at the time for my kids and kids that look like my kids. But now that's evolved into community in general. Like, you still walk in the rooms and rooms still look the same. So you're like, okay, so how do I now link HBCUs to the learning? How do I link women's organizations to historically men driven technology areas? And I figure that if I am in service of these communities, uh, that is the evolution that I've had is looking at everybody as a customer and being in service. Because what I do now, I sure I may still grow my career, but honestly, I need to make sure that I'm paying it forward to folks that are going to take over after I'm done with whatever it is I'm doing, so that the learning continues. And so, NVIDIA literally asked me and told me that they wanted me to continue doing my life's work because they have been watching. And I'm like, well, I've never heard anybody tell me that before. That is exactly where I need to be. And so I made the leap.
That's incredible. And also just a big shout out to know that there are people always watching you, even when you may not notice, right? And how important it is to live by your values and mission, because that may just open that next opportunity. And so it's also just a testament to the company and the leadership that they have there. You have been working in this ecosystem development for quite some time. And, we talk a lot about ecosystems and technology, but I feel like it doesn't go much beyond that into some tangible insights beyond it, right? Everyone's like, we need an ecosystem. Yes. But I have seen you firsthand build some really successful technology ecosystem. What would it, in your opinion, are some of those key elements that are needed for technology ecosystems to survive?
Yeah, look, Sadie, yeah, you have witnessed some stuff, and I I laugh a little bit at the successfully part because a lot of it was really trying to drag people into these ecosystems and explaining it year over year. But in reflecting on my 13 years, I've in government in particular, I lived at the intersection of government, industry, and academia. And in the ecosystem building world, it's called the triple helix. And I've realized that the key elements that are successful for these ecosystems revolve around a robust infrastructure, a skilled workforce, and a culture that encourages risk taking. And at the highest level, it requires leadership that is empowered and enabled to shield um, ideas, good ideas, from being tossed away and tossed to the side. So you witnessed a lot of those efforts was me shielding good ideas, because I always start from the standpoint of yes, and how can this help the communities or citizens of where I live, and until I had to say no to stuff. And so nurturing these ecosystems demands more than just resources. It requires policies that incentivize innovation. It requires policies that streamline regulatory processes, invest in education, and not just junior high and so the K through 8. It's really K through lifelong learning, and being able to bring folks in wherever they are so that they can upskill and reskill in order to help propel those ecosystems. And, the role that government, in my experience, plays is not to dictate like it does in some countries, but to facilitate. And again, it needs leadership in place that can help facilitate innovation to thrive within that ecosystem, create an environment where innovation can just grow organically.
I like this idea of the multiple parties involved with government, industry, academia. You mentioned government's role a little bit in that. What role does industry and academia have in this ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean, so look, government has to help industry de-risk so industry can invest, right? And so if government is scared, which a lot of times it is, uh, the innovators, whether they are still in school, uh, doing research, or just coming up through school, and industry, it makes it really hard to invest. Um, and so the money oftentimes follows the path of least resistance. And so if you are a company or industry looking to invest in a particular technology, you can do it two ways. You can either invest because it's a selfish need that you have, or because you're actually trying to do something for the greater good, right? In academia, kind of the same thing. You know, a lot of times in the academic world, it's to promote the school, to help with recruiting, to help with whether that's student or faculty, to get more dollars from grants or whatever. But if you really take a step back and understand how the role that the three play in economic development broadly, in innovation ecosystem building and workforce enablement, that's, the industry and academic part have to come in where government doesn't, because that's how you raise up communities. That's how you get thriving innovation ecosystem and a sustainable workforce. And if academia doesn't understand what industry wants, if industry isn't talking to academia, that's a problem. If government is stifling the innovation and not creating an environment where the two can work together and talk, or create opportunities within government, it's a problem. So, industry, that's where the money is. Academics is where the next generation is, where the research comes from. And yeah, the three are inextricably linked. But industry and academia play a big piece, but they can't do it alone.
You mentioned risk a couple times, and then you mentioned that government should be reducing risk. And I think that a lot of individuals, when they think of government, they think of individuals who are very risk averse, right? But to me, risk is the opposite of almost innovation, or maybe it's like the fear is the shadow of innovation. How do we start to break through in terms of, particularly now in an age of AI, when there are a lot of fear, we'll use air quotes and risk about AI? How do we start to mitigate those risks, but also make sure that we're leaving plenty of room still for the innovation?
Yeah, so fantastic question, and it's one that at the company we deal with all the time. And I think as society, you saw with the Actors Guild dealing with most recently, right? And so in this space now, one, you have to acknowledge the fears, and I think that was a hard part for me because I've always been a person who looked at the opportunity side, and what good can come out of it. So it was always hard to acknowledge when people were scared of something, because I'm like, well, I mean, but if you do this, it's great. So, but look, if messaging doesn't change about what the opportunity is, and the opportunities aren't advertised to all communities, of how to be successful in this place, if fears aren't addressed with education and empowering people to use the technology and understand the technology at the most foundational level. You don't have to be uh, the most accomplished data scientist to be AI enabled. But you have to be able to move from being solely a consumer to understand what you're consuming. and so, and so, if you can understand at the most basic level how your phone works, and the AI within your phone, why it can tell you how to get to your house when you're leaving somewhere, even though you didn't ask it to. If you understand that, you're starting to get some of the fears, right? Because some of the fears also is privacy. Some of the other fears, there's so many fears built in. You got to just get people comfortable. This, in my thought, I make it sound super simple, but you got to get people comfortable with the tech to understand, to know what's possible, what's coming, so they can even imagine the what's next after that.
Yeah, I definitely am a tech optimist, I would classify myself as. And so it is difficult for me sometimes to have conversations with people, but also very enlightening to hear what some of those fears are. Cause I am very much a rose colored glasses person of like, I just see all the good and the positive. I had the opportunity to speak to the Missouri School Board Association a couple weeks ago, and they actually had some really, really great questions just in terms of, not just really fears, but what skills may we be losing in this process? And it really changed my mindset just in terms of ignoring the fears that individuals have and more so embracing them because they're bringing in a new element of thought into this space as we move forward. And I really loved what you said of it. So much is just getting it in the hands of people. And one of my biggest concerns with the AI revolution that we're on right now is this going to increase the digital divide, right? So, I think so many people would be surprised at how a large portion of the US still doesn't have access to high speed internet. Like, basic fundamental things that are needed to function in today's society. So, if you don't have access to high speed internet, I doubt you're high on the list to get exposure to AI enablement and how it can assist you and the opportunities with it. So, what are your thoughts in terms of what's happening, particularly in the AI space now? Are we going to increase the digital divide? And what steps can we take to mitigate that?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the last part, the steps to mitigate. The hard part is there are so many steps that are needed because of exactly what you addressed about just the lack of access to technology in the first place. I mean, everybody thinks that California is super tech forward, but it wasn't until probably 2012 ish that we participated in a program called the Digital 395 that actually put high speed internet from Ridgecrest up the 395. And so those communities did not have, they were still on DSL. So you had a whole segment of the population, mostly rural, that did not have high speed internet. So there, it goes back to government having to invest in infrastructure, like for real. Again, to de-risk it for industry, aka the telecom providers, to do that last mile service, so that high speed internet is can be kind of spread throughout. Sure, there's good and bad with everything, but you got to give people a chance to have access. Um, and I think some of the other steps. You need folks like you and others out there that are evangelizing the what's coming next, so that people, again, can imagine themselves being part of it, um, and can imagine a world where they can be entrepreneurs, they can be machine learning engineers, they can be you know whatever using AI, because AI is probably one of the most democratizing technologies that's been around in eons, and without efforts to truly democratize it and get it into the hands of everybody and get more people's input on how, say, ChatGPT is developed, or autonomous cars are getting on the road, or whatever, you're missing an opportunity. And so you have to really focus in on diversity and inclusion in that space. Whether it be hiring, whether it be opinions, surveys, whatever it is, you got to reach out to folks you haven't brought into the fold before, intentionally. It can't be by accident. It can't be a secondhand thought. It actually needs to be the first thing you think of when you're developing a new tech.
Yeah, I will double click on the word intentionally because as much as I love algorithms, I think that in some ways they've narrowed our worldview, right? particularly when we're searching for information or getting on social platforms or finding news, it most algorithms work in a way to feed you more of what you like or what your circle of people like. And so I worry so much of like, okay, I may be sharing about the cool things that AI can do, but am I just talking in an echo chamber now to already the people who know about AI or who are interested in it? It's like, how do we really intentionally go out and bridge that barrier to diverse communities and make sure that they have access? So, is there work that you're doing at NVIDIA right now in this regard, or any kind of tips for people besides, joining communities like Women in Data and Girls Who Code? You know, what's the work that you're doing in this space?
Yeah, I mean, look, so while I'm not, I'm just going to make it super clear for the audience. I am not a DEI professional, diversity, equity, inclusion. It's not what I am professionally trained in. Does that mean that I cannot have an influence or an impact in that space? No. So raising up uh, issues that I am aware of and out in the community within NVIDIA is something I've taken on because it's important again, and I'll just keep saying it, to provide that access and opportunity to all communities. And so when you feel something where there is a lack of understanding from a company perspective of how to reach certain populations, um, it moves beyond just a moral imperative to make sure that the company understands or the government understands, because without reaching into these diverse and diverse communities and working on inclusion, you stifle innovation. And so trying to get companies like NVIDIA, which is super innovative, to understand that one, everybody does not know who NVIDIA is in the communities that we're reaching out to. So we may be missing out on some really good talent. We may be missing out on the opportunity to inspire the next generation if we just continue fishing in the same ponds we've always fished in because we've had success there. And so getting that message getting that message across the organization to the different business units, showing examples actively of how to connect, and bringing in communities to experience the hands-on learning, being able to experience just even our headquarters, has been some of the work that goes into what I do on a day-to-day basis, just so people understand um, the art of what's possible.
Yes, I think it's important to recognize, as you mentioned, hey, I'm not head of DE&I, but I still, as an individual in my organization, can raise concerns or make sure we have the right voices in the room. I think that's just so important for all of us to recognize. Like, you don't have to have the particular title. All you have to do is have the voice and the awareness as something to speak up and say, hey, maybe we should, reach out to this community or invite some others to come into our office. I was surprised the other day. I met an individual and they didn't know who Salesforce was. And to me, I thought everyone knows Salesforce. Salesforce is a common name, brand name, right? Like, I thought that's just common knowledge, like Walmart, right? Like, we know who that is. And so it just was one of those of like, it opened my mindset up to like, there are so many more individuals who we can reach out to. And we all have that voice. We don't have to be an influencer by any means because we all have our own circle of community that we influence. So I think that's a great.
I'll just give you just a quick example of somebody that did not know NVIDIA, right? So I'm on calls every day with people that mispronounce the name NVIDIA. I get NVIDIA, I get a bunch of stuff. But this particular organization, a nonprofit that serves the continent of Africa, the person that organized the call was a fan, an investor, had hardware, whatever. He did not prep the rest of the team for the call. And so the CEO got on and literally had no idea who we were. The program director got on, and it took me 3 times to figure out why he kept calling us Nevada. But on the third time, he pronounced NVIDIA. I was like, oh, you're looking at the ticker symbol. That is crazy. That is how you're prepping for the call by looking at the stock symbol. Okay, all right. Well, let's start from scratch and explain to you guys what we actually do and how we can help. So it takes all.
And great, you didn't even have to use an AI model to find that correlation there. That's amazing. So great work on your detective discovery as
No.
well. I like it. It has a new kind of catch to it. I really started saying that as well. So who knows? Next time we'll be like, how are things at Novida? And you'll be like, no, no, no. I love it. I love it. You have had just an incredible career. And I think one of the things that really stands out to me is just how much of your work lived in service of others. And, you know, to me, that is something I think we all really aspire to do, but it can be difficult at times. We all have bills to pay. And, I just met with an individual mentee and she talked about, I'm making a lot of money for a hedge fund and making rich people richer, but, I want to do something that has more meaning in it. How have you stayed so true to your mission and your work throughout your career?
Fantastic question. Um, the like I told you, I don't quite know um, when the conversion officially happened in my mindset. I know that when I was at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the director and chief deputy there liked to give me projects which included reading leadership books that they were going to give to the rest of the leadership staff at DMV. So I was the I was the person that read them first to see if they were worthy. And so, um, in reading these books, part of the thing that was communicated was to have a North Star, right? And so, um, doesn't matter what came at you, your North Star was always there. And so, the way that I've worked since beginning at the state till now is my North Star is to provide access and opportunity. Uh, whether that was working as a chief innovation officer in Sacramento, bringing autonomous robots, food delivery robots to the city, or thinking about autonomous cars, the North Star is access and opportunity. So, and the idea behind the autonomous food delivery robots was if you could get these into communities of need, where they can then be taught how to service the robots, how they can be taught how to program the robots, they can be taught how to infuse themselves into technology, then you grow an ecosystem, you grow uh, um, entrepreneurship opportunities. And so for me, the thinking has always been, what can I do to provide that access and opportunity regardless of what's being thrown at me? Those are just now puzzle pieces for me to get to my end game. So there may be stuff that I don't act on right away, but everything is feeding into my end game, which is bringing access and opportunity to the community. So, sometimes you have to zig, other times you're going to zag, but ultimately they're all puzzle pieces. And if you can keep the main picture that you're trying to put together in focus, it's kind of easy to stay there. And I'll credit basketball with my ability to be agile and kind of adapt to things that are thrown at me, because there's some stuff, like you said, it's really hard because in some instances you're not going to feel appreciated for what you're doing. You're not going to feel like anybody wants to do or understands what you want to do. Um, but if you can stay true to that mission, and you have a mission, and I tell this to people a lot, and some people take a step back and realize that they don't necessarily have a North Star yet. So they get flooded with all the noise. And I just come to the point where the noise is like the crowd cheering when I'm playing basketball, and the end game is still to win the game. And so if my ultimate goal is to win, then let's use all the noise to either they're booing me or they're cheering, one of the two. Either way, the goal is still to win. So I think the competitive part of me is able to keep me focused. And I'll say just real quick, the it may not seem like a highlight moment, um, but the best thing that happened to me in working in government was actually when I was a chief innovation officer and feeling the lowest of low. A package came to the office. I still have no idea who sent it. I still uh, don't know what prompted it. But the card inside said, "The community appreciates you. Keep doing what you're doing." And like I said, I still don't know who sent it. I still, somebody somewhere knew I needed some encouragement. So it's just one of those things. It's hard work, but you have to find allies such as yourself and accomplices to kind of keep you motivated and moving in a good direction.
Yes, it definitely there's a lot of lows, right, that happen. And I'm having flashbacks right now as you are going through this. There have been so many times, I told people I could write a whole book on how to show up when no one else does, which is a big portion of it. You just keep going, whether anybody else is in the game. And I've had many of meetings that no one else showed up to. um, and and then you get your box in the mail that says, "Hey, we appreciate you. Keep doing it," and you keep going, and somehow it all takes shape. You start to see your vision come to life. I think a question that a lot of us have is, we understand, hey, have a North Star, have a vision for your life, but I consult with so many, and even there's times in myself that I'm like, do I have the right North Star? How do you find your North Star? And also then, like, if you think you have it, do you ever question, like, is this the right North Star? Or am I like in the Southern hemisphere and there isn't a North Star? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, yeah, and so great question because uh, for your listeners, my North Star initially was my kids, right? Because they were little, and and I'm like, I need to make sure my kids can see everything that I see. So I actually started taking them to pitch competitions. I started taking them to innovation centers. We'd be in the car and they'd be reading me the innovation briefs for the pitch competition, like we were on Shark Tank, and and so exposing them was necessary. What that evolved into, to your question, is none of them have followed my path. Uh, they've been exposed to everything, but what that did was evolve my North Star. It moved beyond my kids. It moved to literally communities that may never have the opportunity to see the stuff that I've seen, but need to have access. So my North Star has evolved and morphed, but the foundational level is being in service of, right? And I think that's what's allowed uh, me to stay true. So to your listeners, um, what is it? What is it that means the most to you? My whole thing is I don't think that I can be a success without helping somebody else be successful. That I heard my grandmother say that when I was little, and it stuck with me. And so that's the way I live. And it took a while to understand that that truly meant I had to be in service of. Um, but there has to be something that provides you joy, even when there's hard times. You can, you may be under your desk rocking, sucking your thumb, but you have to be able to understand that on the other side of it, you still have to be the one to do the work, and there's still people that are going to be out there. You just have to find them. But your North Star may present itself in weird ways. When I talk to mentees and talk to students, I always tell them it's wonderful how focused a lot of the students are these days. They have their journeys already planned out. And I'm like, well, you haven't had kids, you aren't married, there's so much stuff. But just make sure that when a door opens, you at least take a second and look inside the door, because you can gain opportunities as insight that you never would have had if you just stayed true to the path that you created when you're 18. When I was 18, I cannot say that I was that dedicated to anything. So it's which is why my North Star evolved way later.
Yeah, and I think such a good reminder too that your North Star can change, right? Just have something that's going to keep you going in the beginning, and it's okay if it changes. I know mine has changed many times. First, when I was 18, it was like leaving the farm to get high-speed internet was my first North Star. And I'm like, how do I get access to a little bit? I can't live this dial of life anymore. And then it was like, okay, is there a way that I can actually like support myself just as one individual? And then I fell into the world of data science and technology and fell in love, and it became, okay, how do I provide this access to work? Because like I know what it for me personally to get stability in my life, and it, you know, but I wouldn't imagine in the beginning it was just like, hey, can I even just like provide food for myself, right? Like that was originally, right? And that's okay. You get to that point and then it evolves to that next step. And, now I feel like I'm in a very privileged area where it's not about taking care of myself, it's about taking care of others, providing access to others. And so I think, what you mentioned was, it's a right North Star if it's in service of others, right? And so I think that's just such a great reminder. As we wrap up today, there's been amazing insights. I've got a lot of deja vu, and any one kind of piece of personal advice for our listeners before we dive into the rapid fire question.
Yeah, the rapid fire questions have me scared. I'm just going to say that. But I'll just say, like the perspective shaping that I've had over my career is that you have to immerse yourself in the power of collaboration, because collaboration is what drives technology and innovation. It's I've seen firsthand how technology can transform communities, can transform governance, can transform society, and and um, you know and I'm evolving in my thought process about what that means for the need for inclusivity and ethical innovation. Like, I don't know that early in the career was thinking about ethical innovation. Inclusivity, yes. Ethical, let's just go do it. So advice to aspiring technologists and community leaders, transcend the role of a consumer and truly become an active participant in the innovation in the innovation ecosystem. Understand the basics of the technology, and think of everyone as a potential collaborator. Look at everybody from your coworkers to your family to your bosses to whoever. It's a 360-degree ecosystem all the time. And your impact isn't in just what you create, but how you empower others with your creations and the innovations around it.
I love it. What a great way to wrap us up for the rapid fire question. I'm not here to give you any anxiety, but trust me, this is super. It's just, whatever comes to mind. This is what you'll be laying in bed tonight and then like, I should have said this. So that's all okay. That's how you're supposed to feel about rapid fire. Yeah. Is there a favorite song, podcast, or book you can't put down right now?
So I'm going to pull up my Spotify real quick because I just got tuned on to this new artist. And I think he is fantastic. His album is called The Rebirth of Marvin, and it's an album by October London. And if you are a fan of R&B, produced by Snoop Dogg, of all people, if you are a fan of R&B, go check out October London. The whole album is fire. Um, the podcast. I just listen to whatever news is on. I just put it on play and I work.
I selfishly just ask these questions so that I get new recommendations. So I'm definitely going to go check that out. And now, favorite place you travel?
Yeah, I'll just say this on the music side. Just hit me up, just because I used to be a DJ, so I have a wide variety of things that I listen to. So we could talk about that separately. Now, favorite place I traveled, um, I will actually have to say, and I've been a lot of places. Um, I'll have to say my favorite place was last year. Went to Kenya, to the Masai Mara. That was probably one of the most transformational trips and places I've ever been in my life.
I'm gonna ditto you on that one. I think everyone needs to go to Kenya to visit the Mount Safari. So
And not just for the safaris. You actually have to go talk to the people and be part of stuff. Um, there's so much happiness and joy, even amongst the struggles, that it's just a place that can kind of revive you in how you think.
yes, it's definitely one of those places that I've been reborn a couple times, I will say. Happiness is.
It's gonna sound corny, but happiness these days is seeing my wife smile, hearing her laugh, and seeing that my family is healthy.
In the next 5 years, I hope to.
Uh, I hope to see this. I think this is honestly the one that scared me the most because I don't ever think 5 years out, Sadie. Everything,
What do you think? 3 years? 10 years?
honestly, because of the adaptability, it's I see stuff where it can be in 20, 30 years and work backwards from there. So in 5 years, I truly hope that I've been able to empower the next generation of AI learners, and I continue um, to have tremendous conversations with all the smart students that are coming up now, that are being thoughtful around how technology is evolving, but are also looking back at history and asking folks like me for advice. So I hope that in 5 years, I can actually look back and start tracing the successes of some of those folks.
To me, curiosity is.
Uh, is life. I mean, if you don't stay curious, uh, you don't change. You die. And it sounds stark, but it's true. Curiosity keeps your mind alive. Um, there's probably some stuff you shouldn't be curious about, but at the same time, if you're not willing to explore, if you're not willing to learn, it it's a shame. So yeah, curiosity for me is life.
Well, you nailed the rapid fire questions. You can take a deep sigh of relief. If you're listening, give Louis a round of applause. But seriously, Louis, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us. Your work and your life is such an inspiration to many, and it gives me a lot of hope to meet individuals like yourself to know that hey, there's good people out there doing good work, and we're all in this together. So thank you for taking the time.
Sadie, thank you so much for asking me and having me here. And I look forward to collaborating with you on something in the future.
Likewise. And to all our listeners, remember to stay curious and keep learning, and we'll catch you next time on the Data Bytes Podcast. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Data Bytes Podcast. If you're looking for more resources to further your data career or find your tribe, we encourage you to become a member at womenindata.org. See you on the other side.